What does a successful Black woman in mainstream music look like? Most would look to Beyoncé, the pop icon known for her independent feminist image and assertive sexuality. This summer, she topped the charts with Savage Remix, a collaboration with rising rap star Megan Thee Stallion. Megan has very similar branding, with an even greater emphasis on sexuality, and a very dominant sexuality at that. Megan, like many female rappers before her, mirrors the mainstream male rapper's dominance, aggression, and flexing, subverting gender norms. While Megan, Beyoncé, and many other Black female entertainers are confidently owning this sort of persona and view it as a form of empowerment, this figure of the strong, independent, hypersexualized, and typically light-skinned Black woman seems to be the only image that consistently sells. To take a cue from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, this single story about Black women has disturbing roots. The dehumanizing stereotypes that Black women are hypersexual, masculine, and beastly were invented by European explorers and pillagers to justify the brutal enslavement of Africans. These stereotypes prevent viewing Black women with the complexity they deserve as human beings. While the new evolutions of the stereotypes may be more positive, they are stereotypes nonetheless. It is important to have a diverse range of Black women role models in music to combat stereotypes, and critical thinking about why we don't have such diversity is necessary to move forward. Trader John Locke visited Guinea in 1954, and a chronicle of his experiences was published in England that describes Africans as people of beastly living, in his view, particularly because African women contract no matrimony, neither have respect to chastity. Locke was one of many European visitors to sub-Saharan Africa in the 14th and 15th century who wrote lurid racist literature from an extremely distorted and narrow-minded perspective. These writings were being published at the same time as the transatlantic slave trade was accelerating in growth. Europeans disdained African women for their perceived physical and cultural differences from European women. They adapted their concepts of gender to apply to Africans and created the oppressed class of the Black woman. In her book, Laboring Women, historian Jennifer L. Morgan analyzes how the potential to profit from the enslavement of African women was vast and alluring to European businessmen. So the simultaneous creation of debasing stereotypes and categories of difference helped distance them from the inhumanity of their greed. As Morgan reviews the writings published in Europe on African women, we see African women reduced to their bodies. The breasts were a particular site of fascination. William Towerson describes the breasts of the women of Guinea as, for the most part, very foul and long, hanging down low like the udder of a goat. Multiple writers refer to the breasts of African women as dugs, a word used more commonly for animal breasts. The creation of this animalistic stereotype helped justify the forced labor of Black women at a time when European women for money were viewed as unfit for hard labor. This is also connected to the masculinization of Black women in the European view, as traditional labor is a masculine field in the European imagination. In an interesting parallel, Megan Thee Stallion's stage name originates from the way she has been labeled due to her body. While a stallion is an uncastrated male horse, in the American South, stallion is a term used to describe tall and beautiful women. While this is a comparison of a Black female body to that of an animal, it is a positive, empowering comparison. Europeans were obsessed with how African societies provided those they viewed as women the ability to freely express their sexuality, and amplified this cultural difference into offensive stereotypes about Black women as inherently deviant. Morgan says that for Europeans, to write of sex was also to define and expand the boundaries of profit through productive and reproductive labor. In other words, spotlighting and demonizing the sexuality of African women helped justify European ownership over the children they would produce. Looking at Megan Thee Stallion's music, the same tropes reappear in a new form and context. In the song Body, Megan celebrates her figure and sexuality. The hook repeats, "Body crazy, curvy, wavy, big titties, little waist." In the music video, Megan is portrayed in various revealing outfits highlighting her body. The very first outfit shown is a tight mesh bodysuit covering her whole body, except her nose, mouth, and feet. Her eyes are covered in the shadow of the mesh, partially concealing her identity. By partially covering her face, Megan brings the viewer's attention to her body, if the title and lyrics had not yet signaled the viewer to. In a later lyric, Megan raps,
Ebony, they gon' click it if it's me.
She is referring to herself using the porn category Black women are labeled under, ebony, which can be interpreted as an acceptance of the objectification of herself. The song and music video centers around defining Megan as a sexual body, and yet it is also about the power that Megan feels because she is confident in her sexuality and how she looks. The lyrics,
With me and I would've seen myself, I would have bought me a drink, took me home, did me long, ate it with the pennies on.
show Megan's self-love. The latex bondage gear on top of the bodysuit and Megan's cuffed hands in some shots are also relevant, as sexual bondage brings to mind the bondage of slavery. Unlike the bondage of slavery, handcuffs in the context of modern sexuality are chosen as a means to enhance pleasure for the one in bondage. Looking at Megan's discography as a whole, she is clearly more than a sexual object, and targets other women who are confident in, or aspire to be confident in themselves the way she is. Megan is independent in her sexuality.
I just tell him what I want, cause I got another nigga that's gon' do it if he don't.
And in her finances.
I'ma tell him to buy it, but I can get it myself.
Megan's aggressive sexuality and eye-catching body fit the mold of old stereotypes of Black women, but instead of those stereotypes controlling and demeaning her, Megan owns her otherness as a positive persona. This persona has also allowed her to amass power through wealth and influence. She has used her star status to advocate for Black Lives Matter and the protection of Black women, most notably with her SNL performance of Savage Remix and her op-ed for the New York Times. Megan Thee Stallion is not unique in reclaiming stereotypes of Black women in the music industry. She is a part of a wave of similar rappers such as Cardi B, Doja Cat, and Saweetie. Lil' Kim had a similar persona all the way back in 1996. Of course, the most conservative folks demonize them all, since they may be angry about Black women really existing at all. But the public at large has come to celebrate these artists. The stereotypes of Black women as more sexual and more powerful or masculine than non-Black women by virtue of their bodies have not gone away in mainstream pop culture just because they are now being glorified. If Megan Thee Stallion were to write songs about processing the grief of losing her mother to cancer, would she still be at the top of the Billboard charts? The public seems to favor Black women who reaffirm preconceptions dating back to the slave trade era. As in the past, rich white owners profit off of the bodies of Black women. While Black women are getting a slice of that pie now, the majority of the cash is still going to the music executives. The white mainstream celebrates Megan's performance of their narrow ideas of Blackness, but they do not celebrate Black people in general in a meaningful way. As YouTuber and critic Kimberly N. Foster remarked on Megan's hit collaboration with Cardi B, WAP,
a lot of folks don't approach Meg and Cardi and their work from a place of viewing them as fully embodied women, as women with a diverse set of ideas and ideals, right? They're viewing them as avatars for their own repressed sexuality, or avatars for their own quote-unquote ratchetness.
While there are thousands of people doing the WAP dance on TikTok, the liberation is mostly symbolic. Praise is heaped upon Black women for their images of Black female liberation that just so happen to play with familiar racist tropes. But there is slow progress in taking action against sexism and racism in our institutions and daily lives. In Megan's own words,
You still ain't got no fucking justice for Breonna Taylor.
the oversimplification and avatarization of Black women permeates every corner of the conversation. Historian Jennifer L. Morgan warns against oversimplified thinking when approaching telling the history of Black women under enslavement. Resistance and accommodation are static poles at opposite sides of a spectrum, whose intent is to capture the wide range of responses to repression that these women faced. But this spectrum fails miserably. While contemporary students of the history of slavery understand that it is wrong to reduce men, women, and children to the machine-like laborer who never resisted, Morgan asserts that an assumption that all behaviors under slavery were resistant culminates in precisely the same imaginary automaton. In an attempt to assert Black female autonomy, some cultural critics assume that all the actions of Black female rappers are resistant to patriarchy and white supremacy, replicating the same pattern Morgan found in the telling of the history of Black women under slavery. This reduces Black women to mere automatons of resistance, an inaccurate characterization. In a popular opinion piece for Complex, Brianna Holt dubbed Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B's WAP the epitome of female empowerment. Holt claims, Critiquing WAP as degrading, dehumanizing art is a camouflage for critiquing Black womanhood as a problematic expression. What is Black womanhood? And is WAP an expression of it? The hypersexual hit single is very similar in content to Megan's other aforementioned songs, clearly demonstrating the two rappers' sexual power, prowess, and agency. WAP is certainly an expression of Black womanhood, but as Holt admits, certainly not anything new. Holt's rhetoric leaves little room for nuance and creates a dichotomy between interpreting WAP as entirely negative and as entirely positive. Like Morgan's poles of resistance and accommodation, this dichotomy can make Black women into avatars of empowerment, which does not take into account the complex reality of decision-making in an oppressive society. Black women do not live purely ideological lives. They have bills to pay. Additionally, denying the possibility that Black women can be subconsciously influenced to perform a sexualized image in a patriarchal society denies their mundane humanity, othering them from non-Black women. Holt dismisses the possibility that hypersexualized personas could be problematic by stating that regardless of WAP, Black women have little to no control of how society views them negatively. Oppression undeniably can blunt the efforts of Black women striving towards liberation, but does that mean Black women have to feel pressure to compromise by building their power through capitalizing on the reclamation of harmful stereotypes? Is that the epitome of female empowerment? Holt's imagination in regards to what female empowerment could mean seems limited. She is correct that Black women shaking their butts and describing their sex life in music is not what sets Black women back. It's the people who justify harm toward them because of these actions. But why do Black women need to shake their butts and describe their sex lives to chart the majority of the time? The mainstream ideal of Black female empowerment is almost exclusively artists like Megan Thee Stallion, because despite the desire of white American liberals to treat all races and genders equally, the majority of Americans still subscribe to racist and sexist stereotypes. Megan Pete is much more than Megan Thee Stallion. Digging into her interviews, we see an anime and horror movie nerd, a college student studying health administration, and a woman who has endured the incredible losses of multiple deaths in her family. The heavily publicized shooting of Megan in the summer of 2020 by fellow rapper Tory Lanez revealed to the world her vulnerability underneath the hyper-confident Stallion persona. Her public advocacy for the protection of all Black women following the shooting complicates the simplistic narrative that she is confined to her not-so-radical persona. Just because many in the media and in her audience may respond to her as an avatar cannot take away from the fullness of her being. It's complicated, it's messy, and that's okay. In order to combat the racism and sexism faced by Black women in the media, a consistent interrogation of the narratives created by the media and us all needs to be taking place. This includes narratives about individuals like Megan Pete, narratives about groups like Black female rappers, and narratives about Black women in general. Oversimplification of the complex factors that lead to the creation of Black women's work often diminishes Black women to stereotypes and avatars. Diversification of the Black female figures we see in pop culture is highly possible, with concerted effort from male and non-Black consumers, the music media, and the music industry to seek out and support Black women of all genres, personality types, and skin tones. With this diversification, the limitations on what a successful Black woman can look like have the opportunity to dissipate. When I looked at my playlists, I realized that most of the Black women I listen to are fairly mainstream, and there isn't a ton of diversity within the group. So I'm seeking out new stuff. I listened to the violinist genre melder Sudan Archives the other day, as well as the Afrofuturist hip-hop duo Oshun. I really liked Sudan Archives, but not so much Oshun. Maybe y'all will, though. I will also plug Jamila Woods. You might remember her from that one Chance the Rapper song. Kalala, who makes super otherworldly experimental R&B. There's also the hyperpop icon Shy Girl. I got really into Betty Wright this summer after the news of her death. She was an incredible soul singer with a super long career. I'm really partial to her mostly overlooked 1986 album Sevens, so I definitely recommend that. Please use the comment section to give me and everyone else recommendations of both Black women and also Black non-binary artists. I hope y'all deliver me my new faves. I know I usually only do K-pop videos, but I definitely want to expand the scope of this channel to pop music in general. So occasionally I will be posting non-K-pop videos here, just because I would definitely get bored if I felt like I was only allowed to talk about K-pop. This video was based on an essay I wrote for one of my college classes, but I also want to point out I was heavily inspired by Kimberly Foster from For Harriet, who I mentioned earlier in the video. I was worried this video wasn't unique enough in comparison to hers, but I hope I was able to put enough of my own spin on this topic and get this message out to more people. Please go watch Kimberly's video and check out her whole channel. It is amazing. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe for more. This has been your friend Artaud, signing off.